It's a little after 8. We'll call our Agencies and Affairs Committee meeting to order. First up, we have approval of the agenda. We could make a modification, make a letter number M for South Central Michigan Works report. It should have been in board docs. It was provided. Mike Jones is going to give the report verbally, and we'll circulate the printed report afterwards. So that would be item M, as in Mary, South Central Michigan Works. Any other additions or deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public comments. Public, you have 5 minutes to address the board. Kenny Price.
Good morning. How are y'all doing? I'm Kenny Price, and I'm currently on the Upper Grand River Watershed Committee, and my appointment is coming up today, and I would appreciate a reappointment to the committee. I am also president of the Grand River Environmental Action Team and chairman of the Conservation District. So I've enjoyed my time on the board and would enjoy another term. Thank you.
Peter Bormuth. I just wanted to say that Kenny Price is being sued in circuit court for breach of the duty of obedience. The Grand River Environmental Action Team was incorporated to preserve, protect, and promote the Grand River in Jackson County, and under his direction they have not done that. I would encourage the board to deny Mr. Price's nomination.
Jim Seitz, Secretary and past President, Webmaster, and whatever you want to put down for the Grand River Environmental Action Team, and I would like to be reappointed to the Upper Grand River Watershed Alliance because of my close ties with working with the Grand River down through the years. And I'll point out this very nice painting back here of the Grand River, the only one I know that's in the public in Jackson County. We had that commission when I was president, and I'm pleased to see it's up in the room still. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none. Moving on to the minutes of the April 7, 2014 meeting.
So moved.
Motion and support. Changes or deletions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Takes us to appointments. First up, we have the Department on Aging Advisory Council. 2 open seats, no applicants yet. We'll hold it open until we get applicants for it. The Upper Grand River Watershed Council, we have 6 open seats. We have 3 current members that have reapplied for their seats, which are Kenny Price, James Seats, and Jeff Snyder. Interest of expediency, I think we can do probably those 3 all at once if you'd like. We have a motion. Motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Leaves us with 3 open seats. We'll continue to advertise to try and get those filled. The retirement board is 1 member, and Marcy Wandell is the current member. She's the applicant. I serve with her. She does a great job. And we'd be looking for a motion. Motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Region 2 Planning Commission, current member is Nyan Clavon, applicant is Lynn Fessel. Looking for a motion. Motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Her name will be forwarded on. Next up is the Airport MDOT grant for repairs to the aircraft parking ramp resolution. Kent Maurer.
Good morning. This item is a grant for $30,000 requiring a $3,000 match, and it's to do, I guess I would call emergency repairs to the aircraft parking ramp. That ramp is scheduled for complete rehabilitation in 2018. There's a section that's about 65 feet by 130 feet immediately in front of the terminal that is falling apart. I mean, you can scoop it up with your hands. We were successful getting this grant through MDOT to do these repairs. Then next month, I'll have the quotes for bid, which are under budget, I might add. But this would allow us, and we did have one incident where an aircraft was doing what's called a run-up, where they run their propeller at a high speed. He wasn't supposed to be doing it there, but he sucked up one of these asphalt pebbles and dinged his prop. You might recall that. We paid a little bit of money on that just to settle it. So it is badly needed, and we do have a grant to support the bulk of the costs for it.
Ken, out of curiosity, is it just patching concrete or what?
It'll be a mill and replacement. They'll mill down 4 inches, redo the grade where necessary, and then put 4 inches back in. So it'll be a full 4 inches.
Okay. Looking for a motion? Motion and support to move this onto the full board. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next up is the approve additional envirologic engineering costs for the airport landfill relocation. Ken?
Yes, in December of 2012, and it was approved in January of 2013, we approved $24,800 for Envirologic to assist us with this coordination with the DEQ to look at how we move the landfill, either off-site or on-site. And they subcontracted with SME to do the engineering part of that. Once we got through the DEQ original process, it became a little more complicated. We thought that it would stay local, we would give them a budget estimate on what we intended to do, and we'd move on. And then it moved up into what we'd call the landfill division up in Lansing, and it got quite complicated, looking at 3 scenarios for capping and then 1 scenario for off-site move. And these costs were accrued during that process. I wasn't particularly pleased about putting myself in this position of finding this out after the fact, and I apologize for putting you in this position. These are significant overruns, but I have no question, given our experience with Envirologic and SME, that they're legitimate expenses, and they did do that work. So this is asking for a not to exceed additional payment to Envirologic for those expenses.
Kent, normally they've been pretty much dead on their estimates, but they've given you assurance it probably won't happen again, or I assume?
Yes.
And the funds are there in the fund, correct?
Yeah, it's the runway
Right.
fund. I went back and looked at the contract, and it reads like all those consulting contracts where this is an estimate only, and this is time and materials, so they were strictly within it, but I know Mr. Warwick was not pleased either. But it did get very intense for a couple of weeks, trying to meet the deadline to get into the budgeting time cycle for capital projects.
Okay, looks like it's approval here, not to the full board, correct, Mike? Approval here, not the full board, correct? Okay, be looking for a motion. Motion and support, questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Approve additional coordinating and environmental services agreement with Envirologic.
Yeah, this would be for additional work, and I can tell you that if we ultimately were to move the materials off-site, it requires less of these services because it's less complicated. If we are to continue moving toward moving it on-site and capping the materials from the landfill, then we will expend up to this amount. So it's a little bit of an unknown now, and related to the landfill, I'm getting firmer estimates on trucking and tipping fees. So if we were to truck it off-site, we'll consume less of this contract. If we leave it on-site, it will take this additional work to work with the DEQ on landfill cap design and coordination with the DEQ.
Well, Ken, I appreciate the conversation this morning. We talked about that for a moment, and I had mentioned before about thinking if we could move it off-site might be better, but we got to do what's, I guess, in the best financial interest, so I appreciate your work on it.
Thank you.
Be looking for a motion on this. Motion and support, questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
District Court Quarterly Report, Tammy.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hopefully you found your reports all attached. First quarter of the year, not so good with case filings. As you'll notice, case filings are down. I think we can attribute that to January and February. We had quite a bit of snow and not many people out on the roads. So I'm sure ticket numbers are down and things of that nature, but we're hoping that things are going to pick up. Even though our case filings are down, financially, we are sitting fine with our budget. We're at about 23% of our revenue so far for the first quarter. So things are going in a positive direction there. Are there any questions on any of the reports?
Tammy, I've got one question, one point. What is RHS employer? That's a very small line on the budget comparison you've given us. Do you know what that is or not?
Quite honestly, that's a question that I have for Jim Latham as well. I noticed that, and I have not put in a call to him. I think that that's a mistake. I have no idea.
If you can just shoot me an email when you find out that, or committee members, I guess.
That's one that I noticed, actually, and I have a phone call into Jim.
I think Adam may
Never been
have,
on my budget before.
Adam may have some input for us.
Yeah, that's the retiree health savings plan line item. So that's all of our employees that are out of the defined benefit health are into the retiree health savings plan. So they contribute a small portion and the county contributes a small portion.
Very good. Thank you, Adam. Easy enough.
Thanks, Adam.
And then, Tammy, just a note, the e-ticketing has come online and just getting moving. You anticipate that will likely bring numbers up to eventually?
Well, that's on the side of the, those preparing the tickets. I think it's going to make it quicker for the agencies at the scene to clear that call quicker, so that maybe they can get out and write some more. So that's the anticipation, yes.
Yeah, I'll say it makes it quicker also for processing accidents. It's equipment technology we didn't have before that we can swipe and it dumps it into accident reports too, so it does speed up the time for that. But also the clarity on the tickets. You can't beat it having it printed there and being able to read it versus trying to decipher. Even my handwriting is terrible, so that's a good thing. Dave, did you have your hand raised? Yes. If you can use your microphone, please, Dave.
The civil cases are down quite a bit too. Is this, that seemed to be a trend. Is that?
It is a trend, and unfortunately, those are things that I can't answer as to why those are the filings are lower.
We haven't had a lot of lawyers leave town, have we?
No, not that I'm aware of. Just to touch base, if I may, since you brought up the e-ticketing, we are moving forward with that, and it's really kind of going well. We've got most all of the agencies online, not all at this point. We've had some hiccups, which is good that we don't have all of them online, because I think if we had everybody all at once and you had the hiccups we're having, we'd be overwhelmed. But we're working through that, and I think that it's going to really be beneficial for both sides, for the court and for law enforcement. So I think it's a win-win.
Julie?
How far down the road are the state troopers in with the e-ticketing?
Oh, the state troopers have been online. They were the first ones.
We're the first, okay.
Yes, they're there.
Okay, no other questions? We can move on to the District Court Community Corrections Grant.
These, the Community Correction Grant and the Mental Health Court Grant, which are both there, this is just a request to reapply. Nothing's changed in the program. We've had community corrections. Actually, the county has had this grant since 1997. District Court took it over in 2010. All of the employees that are employed in the program are contract employees. We've added several new programs, and we're just looking for the permission to apply for the 2015 grant.
Any questions or comments, and if not, looking for a motion?
Move to approve the grant application.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Tammy, the Mental Health Court Grant, kind of the same thing, right?
Mental Health Court Grant is the same thing, just looking for approval to reapply.
Commissioners, questions or comments? If not,
Move to approve the application.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you.
JC Dot, authorize the chair to sign the MDOT contract for guardrail upgrade work. And I see Joe Michalski rising.
Yes, we got another federal aid project. They combined two safety projects into one. Each of them are for guardrail repair. One project has 6 locations, mostly on the east side of the county. The other one has 4 locations on the south side of the county. And total, it's going to be about 12,000 feet of guardrail. So, I mean, you're looking over 2 miles. And part of the contract will be done under force account. So we will have our own forces do the removal of the old bad rail, haul it away, and then they'll regrade the shoulder area. So we're saving a lot of money there by being able to do some of that work ourselves, and also keeps our crews busy for the summer too. So we're just looking for board approval of our MDOT agreement with them and for our chair to sign the contracts next week.
Commissioners, any questions? If not, a motion, please. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Joe. Julie?
So when I look at the document there, Joe, backing up, the total cost for the project is $708,000. It's an 80-20. So if JDOT is paying the 20% or $141,000, is that coming out of the removal and the regrading for the most part? So
So
basically
what
their work.
happens is a lot of the work that we're going to do ourselves comes out of that safety money, and so it requires actually less of a match.
Oh.
So your 20%, you'll still have your 20%, only it'll be at a smaller dollar amount.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. Hillsdale and Lenawee do a lot of force account work, mostly with chip seal projects, and there's a maximum. You can only go up to $100,000, because you have to prove to MDOT you can save 6% by doing it yourself versus a contractor. And so Jerry says, yeah, let's do that. We need to keep our guys busy here after that brutal winter, and so it worked out, and we're going to go through with it, and they're all excited.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Parks Cascades liquor license resolution. Guy Robbins. Pretty straightforward request, just codifying what we did last month, I think.
That is correct,
Which is
sir.
authorizing, I think, Mike Overton.
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Hearing none, looking for a motion? Yes, it does go to the full board, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Circuit Court, Charles.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Charles.
Almost summer for a couple of days anyway. I've included some numbers from our first quarter and then some general summary statistics from our caseload and revenues from last year, so I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Charles, I'm trying to scroll to it, but when I looked at it over the weekend, it looked like the full-time wages line was up significantly, like 7% or so. It should be about 25%, and it's what the year has gone, correct, on this report?
It should be, but remember, and I'm not sure exactly when the 2.5% is taken out for the float consideration, and that is usually right around $30,000-$35,000, and it's put into a contingency. Any department, I think, that's over $500,000, that board policy applies to. So that tends to overstate that line item. But I'd have to ask Adam when it usually happens, but it usually happens in February, March.
I don't believe we have done the float yet, but when it happens, yeah, it will throw the proportions off of the budget a little bit.
But I can tell you, we're not spending extra money, so.
We'll look for it in the next report. And then my only other question was, you've got comparisons there back to 2010 for every year. And so far this year, where would you see the numbers going? It's hard, we don't have the numbers of caseload for this
Yeah,
quarter.
well, you have to, when you print your caseload out, you end up with about this much paper. So I didn't print those documents out, but I would say we're pretty close to what we were in 2013. We haven't deviated too far from that.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? Chairman Chadwell.
I want to commend you for the work your circuit court does, and I know you guys are very busy, but I would hope that you'd go back and review your emails on where I requested to have a meeting with you and Judge Wilson. We've got a response from district court. I hope to have that sometime this quarter.
And I've reminded Judge Wilson of that, and I will reiterate that to him.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
GIS street name public hearing request. Scott Ames. Is this your work of art we looked at here?
My what?
Work of art?
I wouldn't say it's my work of art.
Okay.
Waterloo Township has been attempting to work itself around Clear Lake and naming of the private drives around Clear Lake. A good share of them do not have names. They're basically called Clear Lake. They could be Court, they could be whatever else. In fact, the southern side, their name changes will take effect today that are going in the computer, but they are all addressed to Clear Lake, and they come off Green Road. So I don't know how. And some history on the naming of private drives in this county. Years ago, and the same would happen down in Farwell Lake, private drives all around the lakes were called, like at Farwell Lake were called Farwell Lake. At Clear Lake, they were called Clear Lake. Every little private drive around the lake had the same name. And it causes some confusion nowadays, as back then they used to be, most of the places used to be cottages around the lake. Now people converted them to full-time homes over the years. There's even some little fire lanes that people live on now. Waterloo, as required by the ordinance, is the one that initiated the changes. They've done some prior work on M52 a couple of years ago, and they're attempting to move through the township to correct the address problems and street name problems, and they chose to attack Clear Lake on a basis. They've done they broke the lake down into 4 areas. They're into the 3rd area. This request is in the 2nd area. They've had 10 private drives. This is one of the 10. This is the only one that's requested as public hearing. In fact, it's the first time it's ever been done. And the ordinance, you have some residents that signed the petition. It was actually moving forward rather easily. Someone suggested a name on that road, but one resident had an issue, from what I understanding, with the township, and he went and got petition signed, and they're asking for a public hearing. They would like the county commission to exempt them from having their name changed from the ordinance. The information you have before you have the documentation where township sent letters out to the people. They had a little public hearing with everybody. They brought the people in to talk about it, explain the road name changes, and then they asked them to submit names on a timely basis to them. This, like I said, just one private drive, there's 10 residents on this private drive. And the issue comes up, where the ordinance addresses it, is that you have everybody's address to Clear Lake Road on that drive, even though the main road is Clear Lake Road. So in the computer system in 911, that shows up as the intersection of Clear Lake Road and Clear Lake Road, which causes confusion, and I think Mr. Elwell could attest to that. We fix these things all the time, or attempt to, in the computer for 911. So, but their request is to have a public hearing. As allowed, the ordinance needs updated, and now that Julie's on the committee, I'm going to pull the committee together to look and suggest changes to the ordinance, because the ordinance does reference the county road commission, not the county commission now, which has changed. And this process would, in the old ordinance, would have went to the road commission to be decided at the public hearing. The ordinance also states at the end of the public hearing, it says the road commission will pick a name at the end of the public hearing. My suggestion was to do a little exception to that and give the people another 30 days. That was my recommendation, to come up with a name, or the road department would pick one from the list of submitted names already.
Scott, you mentioned that they wanted us to waive the policy, but that's not what this request is. This is just for another 30 days to try and get them to work it out, correct? That's the request
That was
today.
going to be my suggestion. I don't know if you guys want to get in the business of picking road names for people on their road. That's up to you.
Yeah, how I took the documentation we got is to grant an exemption by giving the property owners another 30 days to submit a name. That's how I took this request, was just to give another 30 days to try and work it out.
Yep.
Is that how the other commissioners took it too?
Correct, but it also does say that to have the May, which is next week, to have their public hearing next May, at the May,
I meant next week.
I'm sorry, next
Was it
week, correct.
Next, at the county commission meeting next Tuesday
Tuesday.
would be the public hearing. You guys are recommending to the county board to hold a public hearing on this issue. You could choose not to hold a public hearing.
Well, but let's back up to what this request is actually for then. Is it to put off that public hearing and let them work on it? Because that's kind of how it reads.
No, because the ordinance states at the end of the public hearing, you will pick you will pick a name. I'm suggesting that my recommendation to the county board is at the public hearing, instead of picking a name at the end, you give them another 30 days, just like a 30-day extension, and then if not, allow the road department to pick that road name.
Okay, well, again, that would come then at the public hearing next week.
Yeah, I'm recommending that be your action, instead of giving them a name right then and there, is you give them another 30 days to let them pick their own name, but knowing that they've only got 30 days, or a name will be assigned.
Julie?
Scott, are those residents, were they informed of today's standing committee meeting, or are they aware of this timeline?
No, I have not notified them of that.
Okay.
The notice, if you approve a public hearing, or send it to the full board, I'll be sending them out today to them, to let them know that the public hearing will be held at the county board.
Okay, so the actual hearing would be next week. Another question, Julie?
Yeah, I do. I was just
Okay, go ahead.
being polite and seeing if anyone else had any comments. I have some concerns and issues with this.
Okay.
Scott, the policy that you shared with me a couple of weeks ago, I find some inconsistencies in here where, while you're explaining, and I respect your experience and your knowledge and expertise in this area, this by no means is anything I feel very comfortable with. In reading the document, I can see where an individual might be able to justify their reasoning as well, number one. Number two, I see this document as being outdated. I find some discrepancies in this ordinance document. And number three, the fact that they weren't even aware of this meeting today and given a chance to share with us their concerns. So if you're asking us to hold a public hearing, and in theory, although the policy says immediately then give a name, however, giving them an additional 30 days, I respect that 30 days to try to work it out. But with all of this information being unclear to me, and finally, in addition, some of the information you're getting is giving us, well, again, I appreciate your professionalism and respect and your years of experience. It is different than what I am hearing from one of the residents that I have talked to. So for that reason, I will be voting no.
Yeah, and I've heard from that resident as well, and so Mr. Michalski and a number of people. You know,
the reason I did notify them, this was the public hearing, by ordinance, the public hearing has to occur. That was where I saw their opportunity to speak. This was just bringing it to you so you could move it forward to put it on the agenda for your full county board and give you some background on what's going on and why they requested it.
Scott, how much notice has to be given for the public hearing? Because we're just a week
The
off.
ordinance doesn't,
say?
no.
Mike,
And
did you want to?
and Julie's right, there's inconsistencies in the ordinance, and the committee will
Right, and
hopefully be
there,
taking.
and there really isn't much here for us to do because this goes to the full board. I mean, it's really just to send the issue on,
Yes.
is what it's for. Mike?
Generally speaking, a public hearing, you need to give at least 10 days' notice. You
Okay.
can't just say, we're having a public hearing 3 days later, because you really haven't given the public an opportunity to, one, know that there's a public hearing, prepare the remarks, and what have you.
The township has let the people know that a public hearing, this was going through this process in there. The public hearing would hopefully be coming in May to the county board. But, yes, but the ordinance.
Township's not holding the public hearing, it's the county
It's the
commissioners.
county commissioners,
We officially
correct.
would need to post it, regardless of what the ordinance says, just,
Okay.
I would not, let's put it this way, we wouldn't prevail if challenged on our public hearing process if we didn't give ample notice for public hearing. So while you can give them 30 more days, that's fine, but there's no way, in my mind, we can have a public hearing next Tuesday, given today is Monday, that's less than 10 days, and I just wouldn't be comfortable with that.
Scott, is there some?
How do you mail it?
Right. Scott, is there some timeliness that it has to be soon? I mean, if we put it off another month, is there any harm in that?
Not in my mind.
My suggestion would be that we forward the issue on to the full board at the discretion of the administrator on when to hold the public hearing. And if he doesn't have time to get it this month, then it would be the following month. There isn't much here for us to do anyway, except for declare that we see a need for a public hearing. That sound reasonable? Forward the issue on to the full board to be determined by the administrator if that'll be this month or next month.
I have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
Is the address naming committee going to be the one that ultimately will make the decision, or the road commission? Or the road department, whatever?
The ordinance states that the road commission at the time had ultimate control, authority over road names, assignments, and that's to eliminate duplication and any inconsistencies in the road names. And Joe is the one that does that for the road department. The township residents have submitted a whole series of names, and so that's what the ordinance stipulates the power to, is the county road department, because they have the database.
Sorry. Can they, in their committee meeting, like, host a committee meeting and have the public hearing at their committee meeting instead of our Board of Commission meeting, and then have the road department come there?
That road department is part of that committee, but in the rewriting the ordinance, that would probably be coming out as a suggestion.
Correct. Joe has explained to me, the street naming, this committee has no part or a part of the process. It keeps referring to JDOT, but then it seems to land on one individual. So thus my confusion.
Okay, point of clarification, I think, Mike can correct me, but if the decision is ultimately the Board of Commissioners, the public hearing should be before the Board of Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
Not a committee.
That's the way the ordinance requires
But
now, so it is what it is.
Just to save confusion, why don't we just hold this over for another month? They're wanting to delay, I mean, it would be nice if they could sit down and work it out, because it sounds like you have some that are okay and at least one that's not okay, is what you have. And if they have more time to work it out, I'd much rather see that.
I agree. Delaying it another month is not going to matter to them. They want to be exempted from it totally anyhow, so.
Well, these
I don't
other
think they'll
issues
argue.
mentioned here can maybe be clarified as well, but I see no harm in holding it over for another month. And for lack of a motion, that's what'll happen automatically, I guess. Okay. Thank you.
We just wanted to see an excellent
Comment.
Go ahead, Mike.
For me.
I just would make a comment in regard to ordinances that are on the books. Where it says road commission, it's the county commission.
Right.
That's state law. When they change that, that's what it says. Now, that doesn't mean we don't need to correct the ordinance. Frankly, the ordinance sounds a little cumbersome to begin with. So,
It
but
is. It has some
addressing is always a very painful subject.
So Scott, when the road commission had to deal with issues of this nature, back then, was it the road commission, or was it one leader from the road commission back then?
Honestly, this is the first time it's ever been challenged in a request for a public hearing. It's always been a very easy process, to tell you the truth. The townships would hold their public hearings, the people would come in, they would be okay with it. You were on Fall Road, right? Was that one, a big one in Grass Lake, the readdressing of it? The citizens seem to be usually okay. This is the first time it's really become a big issue that we've never had this come up. So this is the first time this process has actually been run in a public hearing process. So you have to go this far, is right. You have a few people that, yes. Yeah, townships, the ordinance gives the power to the townships to ask that things be corrected. That becomes a very difficult process, and to the committee, I might ask them to rethink how things are done with the whole ordinance and the way it's written, is because townships are not very willing to move ahead with changes, because people get mad sometimes. Some people don't. In the case of Fall Road, they wanted to rename another section of Fall Road to a different name. It was rather interesting. But for the most part, you get one or two people that have some questions and might ask questions but then it moves forward. It's taken a long time to correct things in this county because of the process and the way it's done, and the township's unwilling to do that because it makes the residents of their townships upset with them. So.
Okay, thanks, Scott. We should be set. We've got another month to get it worked out. And the late addition to the agenda, my fault for not making sure we had the report itself, but South Central Michigan Works. Okay. Oh, it's on there now. Very good.
On the agenda.
How's that for fast, Mike? It's
Thanks,
on there
Commissioner.
now.
I appreciate it very much. When you do get your report, it's going to be basically 4 slides and a PowerPoint presentation. Before I begin my remarks this morning, I'd just like to extend a thank you to Commissioners Leitner, Alexander, and Plotchik for serving on our board. As they will attest, right now it's rather exciting times, but also very challenging times for South Central Michigan Works. The first slide that you're going to see when you get the report is basically the unemployment graph for Jackson County. And our unemployment rate remained at 8.5%, but that is down from 14.3% at the height of the recession. So there is some good news on the horizon. Jobs edged up 300. We had private education and healthcare contributing 200 jobs, and then we had business services, which would be auto repair, things like that, edged up 100. Manufacturing still remains 17.3% of our economy here in Jackson County, and over the last 6 months, that sector edged up 100 jobs. We are starting to see some continuation there, but one of the challenges we're faced with is trying to find workers. And we're having a real hard time across the whole Tri-County area, which I represent, both Lenawee, Hillsdale, and Jackson, to try to find skilled workers, particularly in the hard skills, welding, CNC operators, individuals like that. We're offering up training right now, trying to recruit people, but it's a real challenge. It really is. So the last slide that you're going to see, when you look at our Tri-County area, the total individuals we've served, now our program year is July 1st to June 30th, so we're a little bit different from a programmatic standpoint. We have served across the Tri-County area 16,328 individuals. The total employees served at the time this report, which is March data, was generated, was 597. That is now 1,303. And I'll be announcing that to our board on Thursday. And then finally, the total jobs filled across the Tri-County area this program year is 998. So we are starting to see some reemployment, but once again, we are having a difficult time trying to find workers and to get them trained to take some of the jobs that are available. Last comment, we did work with an organization in Jackson and Spring Arbor that's closing down the news group. We convened a meeting between the unemployment insurance agency for the state of Michigan, Department of Human Services, South Central Michigan Works, and then also the United Way to assist these individuals in trying to find reemployment. It's going to impact about 38 workers across Jackson County. Most of these folks are general laborers, so we will be working very closely with them to try to get them reemployed just as quickly as possible. I'd entertain any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes.
Commissioners, any questions?
The significant increase, well, I consider it significant from the March data to now, you said it's up over 1,300. Do you know how much of that is attributed to, like, the expansion at Mackey? Because I know that, I mean, I was there for their ribbon cutting ceremony
Yeah.
for their addition, so now they're over 1 million square feet, but they added like 250,000 square feet for just that expansion?
Yeah.
Like, how many employees is that?
Yeah, let me clarify. They're looking at adding about 100 employees. We're working very closely with them to see if there's some on-the-job training grants that we can provide those workers. For those who don't know, an on-the-job training grant, what we can do for a company that size is as they hire people that they don't think may have the skills required to be successful, we can offset some of their initial wages. And that's an incentive to the employer to take on people that, quite honestly, may be a risk, but they use that transition time to train them and get them up, up to the skill level they need to be. And so we're working with them to do that. The 597 number, Sarah, was how many employers we've served, and that's what's up to 1,303 now. Those are actual employers, not employees. And so I just want to make that point of clarification. But yeah, Mackey, we are working very closely with to help them, get their folks skilled up. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, moving on to claims. Anybody want to pay the bills? Commissioner Lechker or Palachik want to support the motion to pay the claims? We have a half and a half. Take your pick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Bills are paid. You have the other minutes, the June reporting schedule, and we're back to public comments with 3 minutes to address the committee. Public comment. Public comment is closed. Committee member comments. None of those either. We're adjourned. Thank you.